Hey beautiful people, this video is about commitment management systems or building a commitment management system for your project. In other videos as part of this series, I've talked about commitment management as a practice, and I've also talked about making and keeping commitments and making and keeping promises. As we look at the health of our teams and the progress of our teams, not just in terms of output metrics and deliverables, we also need to look at whether or not they're learning together effectively, whether or not they're growing their capacity, whether or not they're burning out, whether or not they're coordinating well with each other, whether or not they're building trust with each other. So if we're committed to building teams that improve and increase their functionality by virtue of playing together, by virtue of working together, then it's important that we also recognize that we need to start thinking differently about what that metric is and how we measure it and how we pay attention to it. So in this video, I want to talk to you about the idea of commitment management. I've talked in previous videos about the importance of commitments or the importance of making and keeping promises as foundational to the success of a high-functioning team, or foundational to the success of a team that has a high execution capacity. As you start thinking about this, you're also going to start asking the question, well, okay, great, but how do I actually measure and manage this? And that's what I want to talk about in this video. By the end of the video, I want you to be able to understand the difference between managing work versus managing commitments. And I would say there's a significant difference there in my experience and in my practice. I want to look at what are the key components of an effective commitment management system. I want to also help you think about how you build in executional fluency into your team or your project and how a commitment management system helps you do that. So let's talk about what a commitment management system is and what it isn't. A commitment management system is not Jira, Asana, or a spreadsheet. Those are tasks, and I very clearly distinguish, and the teams that I've worked with and some of the high-functioning teams that I have seen and interviewed and engaged with, they understand very clearly the difference between tasks and commitments, and I want you to be able to understand that too. Commitment management system is based on a human-centered, conversation-based architecture. It understands that there is a rigorous and robust way for us to be able to define and manage commitments. And we don't have to take it down to the task level for us to be able to track it and manage it and be successful in managing a team from the perspective of commitments. In fact, quite the opposite. What we've seen over time, as teams get really fluent and capable and they build out their capacity in their ability to be able to make and manage commitments to each other, they reduce the number of tasks that they are paying attention to or dealing with. A commitment management system also tracks promises, not just tasks, and it aligns them with the overall definition of done or conditions for satisfaction for the project. So there's a thread that flows through all of the commitments where it makes sense to the people who are delivering on those commitments in the context of the overall deliverable or the overall success of the project. And again, I distinguish between just the deliverable and the success. Once we start putting commitment management systems in place, we also give ourselves the ability to be able to start seeing the invisible execution layer. We make it visible to ourselves and to others. And what happens when we do that, and when I talk about the execution layer, and again, I've talked about it in a number of other videos, but when I talk about it just briefly, what I'm talking about is I'm not talking about the visible piece. Think in your mind's eye, think about a giant iceberg. When I talk about the visible piece, we're talking about the stuff that we all know about. So it's the org charts, the project plans, the Gantt chart, the task management systems, the meeting list, the calendars, all of the stuff that we use to manage work. There's an invisible piece that happens under that we don't have the understanding fully yet to be able to really get a handle on that invisible piece. Some people have done work around influencers within teams and with organizations, and they're trying to pay attention to that invisible layer that happens inside of organizations and teams. There is a very, very powerful way to actually be able to clearly distinguish in a robust and rigorous way and observe that. And it's based on magnificent work that was done in Oxford University by John Austin in the 1960s. And it uses human language language as a way of being able to observe and understand that. And it talks about the idea of promises, and it talks about commitments, and it talks about offers. And it allows us to be able to recognize the artifacts associated with those and the moments in which those handshakes or commitments or agreements happen inside the organization. So think of that as the execution layer. By building commitment systems, we're beginning to make the execution layer visible. And what we're doing is we're really beginning to expose how real work gets done through the flow of promises. And what we're doing is we're at the same time, we're reducing ambiguity, reducing rework, we're reducing silent dissatisfaction. Now, when I talk about silent dissatisfaction, many people will laugh or smile, but it's a nervous laugh or a smile, because we all know that if we've worked on teams for any period of time, we have this annoying, small, low-level dissatisfaction that we have with certain team members because they deliver kind of 90% and they never really ask us whether or not we're really thrilled with what they've done, and they kind of shy away from just pushing it over the finish line more effectively, and they're always kind of leaving bits and pieces for other people to do. So silent dissatisfaction is something that we're all aware of and we've all worked with and we've all experienced. And the other thing that it does is it also reduces micromanagement. I'm working with this phenomenal woman at the moment, and she does a lot of innovation inside her company, and her engine for her innovation, her drive behind her innovation, comes from her firm belief that smart people should not be asked to do stupid things. And many times when it comes to micromanaging, what we're doing is we know we've asked people to do stupid things and we are trying to make them do it by micromanaging them, or we don't trust them and we're micromanaging them. So micromanagement is a whole other conversation worth having if we want to deeply understand it. But as we start looking at a commitment management system, we've got to look at not only what does it allow us to see, but what also the benefits of having one in place and what it allows us to be able to reduce significantly. As you start thinking about designing your commitment management system, and this may end up being on the back of an envelope, it may end up being on a spreadsheet, it may end up being on just a report that you run for yourself for a period of time so you see how and where this might work within your group, I strongly recommend, as I do with pretty much everything that involves a level of transformation and human behavior change, or that is systemic and going to build long-term value. It's a practice that's going to happen over a long period of time. Start small and start with one project. Make sure that you're introducing the language of human coordination. Talked about this in other videos, but very briefly, it's the idea of customers and performers, of understanding what satisfaction looks like and means, and having that be a shared understanding, and being able to really understand what completion looks like in terms of delivering value for the customer. The other thing to look at is make sure that you understand what real promises are. I did a whole video on this, but briefly, real promises are something that exists both between the customer and the performer in terms of the commitment or the handshake that they're making. As you start tracking that and you start looking at what promises are alive, what promises are dead, what promises are unclear, what promises have stalled out because they're unclear, we begin asking different kinds of questions. And when we start asking those kind of questions, people start questioning themselves and asking whether or not they're making real commitments, asking whether or not the people around them that they're relying on have made real commitments to them. And they end up revisiting a number of the conversations that they've had. Initially, this looks like extra work, but in reality, what it's doing is it's building our execution capacity, it's building our level of trust, it's building our coordination capacity, it's helping us begin to see our execution layer. And what we're doing is we're recovering from breakdowns that would have undermined our project significantly in the long run. The other thing that they do is they embed completion rituals into the process. They have coordination or meeting or check-ins or whatever function they want to be able to create around these sort of systems. Is they're asking whether or not satisfaction has been declared and how well it has been declared and how well completion has been declared. So they're looking at this loop of commitment that we're looking to build with each other, and they're helping people make it explicit and be able to see it and be able to understand it. This is something that you can start tomorrow. You can start it yourself. You can start it in very small increments with your team. You can build a team's capacity to be able to do this over time. You can begin to track it and manage it, and you can begin to see the impact that it has on the team in terms of their health, working together, their ability to be able to coordinate, the level of trust they build with each other. And then you can begin to see the impact it actually has on their output delivery metrics. I would consider this an integral part of any performance metrics for a team, and over time what you can see is significant impact on output and delivery metrics, and also reliability of forecasts and project plans. As you start thinking about how to build commitment management systems, really encourage you to have a look at my white paper, which is free. It's available in the link below, and it's also available on my website, which is www.jenniferkenny.com/execution. It's a white paper around execution by design, and it incorporates this thinking into it and shows the impact of bringing this type of thinking and practice into a team versus not. And it shows you the type of things that it can remedy and improve over time. This is a fantastic journey to embark on. I'm here to support you in it. I hope the other videos will be helpful for you, and I wish you the best of luck with your commitment management system. Let me know how it goes. Let me know how I can help you. Take care.